The empire did not collapse because it lacked intelligence. It collapsed because it possessed too much ambition, scattered across too many directions. Inside the headquarters, executives celebrated diversification as if it were a universal virtue. New divisions emerged every quarter. New initiatives appeared every month. New opportunities arrived every week. The organization expanded outward in every conceivable direction, chasing growth, visibility, influence, and relevance. To outsiders, it looked unstoppable. The balance sheets appeared healthy. The headlines remained positive. Analysts praised its adaptability. Yet beneath the surface, a silent erosion had already begun. Energy was being divided. Attention was being diluted. Capital was being fragmented. Focus was being sacrificed at the altar of possibility. Across the market stood another organization, smaller, quieter, and infinitely more dangerous. It ignored most opportunities. It rejected most partnerships. It declined most expansions. It concentrated everything, its resources, its talent, its leadership attention, its operational discipline, its strategic imagination. Everything flowed toward a single objective, and eventually, the market learned a lesson that history has repeated with relentless consistency. The concentrated force almost always defeats the scattered force. The lesson sounds simple until one attempts to live by it. Because the modern world rewards fragmentation psychologically long before it punishes it economically. Human beings are naturally attracted to possibility. The mind enjoys options because options create the illusion of security. Multiple pathways feel safer than one pathway. Multiple projects feel more exciting than one project. Multiple ambitions feel more intelligent than one obsession. Yet at the highest levels of competitive environments, this instinct often becomes a hidden liability. The greatest strategic victories rarely emerge from expanded attention. They emerge from concentrated attention. This principle governs far more than business. It governs influence, wealth, innovation, mastery, leadership, even identity itself. The average person distributes effort broadly and hopes for extraordinary outcomes. The exceptional individual gathers effort into a single point and creates extraordinary force. There is a profound difference between activity and concentration. Activity creates movement. Concentration creates penetration. Activity spreads energy across a landscape. Concentration drives energy through a target. Activity can be impressive. Concentration can be transformative. Most organizations never understand this distinction because expansion feels like progress. New departments create excitement. New products generate momentum. New ventures create stories investors enjoy hearing. Yet every additional direction quietly demands attention. Every new initiative requires leadership capacity. Every new objective consumes decision-making energy. And leadership energy is perhaps the rarest resource inside any enterprise. Money can be raised. Talent can be recruited. Technology can be acquired. But attention remains finite. Once attention becomes fragmented, judgment begins weakening. Once judgment weakens, priorities blur. Once priorities blur, force dissipates. The process is gradual enough that few people recognize it while it is happening. This is why concentrated leaders often appear unusually disciplined. They seem indifferent to opportunities that excite everyone else. They ignore trends competitors chase aggressively. They refuse invitations that appear attractive. They reject expansions that seem profitable. To observers, this behavior can appear irrational. Yet beneath that restraint exists a deeper understanding of strategic physics. Every yes creates 1,000 hidden no's. Every commitment creates opportunity costs invisible to the untrained eye. Every new objective competes against existing objectives for the same reservoir of attention. The elite understand this intuitively. They know that success is not merely a function of what receives energy, it is equally a function of what is denied energy. There is a reason history remembers dominant institutions differently than average institutions. The dominant institution eventually becomes synonymous with something specific, a category, a capability, a perception, a territory of expertise so concentrated that competitors struggle to challenge it directly. This level of positioning is not created through diversification. It is created through accumulation, layer after layer, year after year, decision after decision, attention flowing repeatedly toward the same strategic center. The modern marketplace encourages the opposite behavior. It rewards novelty. It rewards responsiveness. It rewards visible movement. Every quarter introduces new temptations. Every cycle presents new distractions disguised as opportunities. Every industry generates fresh narratives promising exponential rewards for those willing to chase them. And so organizations begin drifting, not because leaders are unintelligent, because distractions are often attractive. The dangerous opportunities are rarely the obviously bad ones. They are the good opportunities, the profitable opportunities, the respectable opportunities, the opportunities capable of pulling attention away from greatness and redirecting it toward comfortable mediocrity. The elite strategist understands that the enemy of extraordinary success is not failure, it is dilution. Dilution of focus, dilution of conviction, dilution of effort, dilution of attention. And dilution is seductive because it arrives disguised as expansion. Imagine a beam of light scattered across an entire room. It illuminates everything, yet transforms nothing. Now imagine that same energy compressed into a single point. Suddenly steel can be cut, distances can be measured, entire technologies become possible. The energy never changed, only the concentration changed. This principle governs human performance with astonishing precision. The most formidable leaders are rarely those with the greatest raw intelligence. They are often those with the greatest capacity for sustained concentration. They become immune to distraction, immune to comparison, immune to the endless emotional noise surrounding them. They possess a psychological trait so rare that modern culture almost discourages it entirely: the ability to remain committed to one thing long after novelty disappears. This is where Stoic wisdom enters the equation. The Stoic does not chase stimulation. The Stoic pursues alignment. Alignment between thought and action. Alignment between strategy and execution. Alignment between objective and resource allocation. While others become emotionally reactive to changing circumstances, the Stoic remains anchored to first principles. This stability creates extraordinary leverage because concentrated effort compounds over time. Most people underestimate the power of compounding concentration. They understand financial compounding. They understand interest. They understand investment returns. But they fail to recognize that focus compounds as well. Every year invested into a single capability deepens expertise. Every year invested into a single market deepens understanding. Every year invested into a single strategic direction increases momentum. The effect becomes exponential. At first, the advantage appears invisible. Then it becomes noticeable. Then it becomes overwhelming. Then it becomes untouchable. This is the phase where competitors begin asking the wrong questions. They assume superior outcomes were created by superior resources. They assume dominance emerged from superior luck. They assume influence appeared suddenly, but the truth is often far less glamorous and far more powerful. The dominant force simply remained concentrated longer than everyone else. This realization creates discomfort, because it challenges one of the most popular myths in modern achievement culture: the myth that more options create more power. In reality, excessive options often create paralysis. Excessive opportunities create confusion. Excessive flexibility destroys momentum. The highest performers eventually become ruthless guardians of concentration, not because they dislike opportunity, because they understand opportunity's hidden cost. Every distraction demands payment, and the payment is focus. The strongest institutions on Earth frequently behave like fortresses, not because they isolate themselves from reality, but because they protect their strategic center from unnecessary intrusion. They create walls around priorities. They establish filters around attention. They refuse to allow every external stimulus equal access to internal resources. This discipline produces something remarkable: clarity. And clarity creates speed. The market often mistakes movement for speed, yet true speed emerges when energy flows without friction toward a clearly defined destination. Fragmented organizations spend enormous effort coordinating themselves. Concentrated organizations spend enormous effort advancing themselves. The difference becomes profound over time. One organization becomes busy, the other becomes dominant. One becomes reactive, the other becomes directional. One follows opportunities, the other creates gravity. Gravity is perhaps the most useful metaphor of all. The strongest companies eventually stop chasing resources because resources begin moving toward them. Talent arrives voluntarily. Capital arrives voluntarily. Partnerships arrive voluntarily. Influence accumulates naturally, not because they expanded indiscriminately, because they became exceptionally concentrated. People trust concentrated competence. Markets reward concentrated competence. Capital SE(X) concentrated competence. The deeper one studies elite leadership, the more this pattern appears. The most extraordinary outcomes emerge when organizations stop asking how many directions they can pursue and start asking which direction deserves absolute commitment. Absolute commitment is frightening because it removes excuses. It removes fallback identities. It removes comforting distractions. It demands sacrifice. It demands patience. It demands conviction, strong enough to withstand periods where concentration appears slower than diversification. Yet this apparent slowness conceals tremendous force. The river that floods a plain creates spectacle. The river forced through a narrow channel creates power. Everything depends on concentration. Everything depends on leverage. Everything depends on the willingness to ignore 99 attractive alternatives in pursuit of one transformative objective. Most people never reach this realization because the pressure to diversify psychologically feels overwhelming. They fear missing opportunities. They fear being wrong. They fear commitment. So they spread effort across multiple pursuits and wonder why extraordinary outcomes remain elusive. The elite thinker reverses the equation entirely. Instead of asking what else can be added, he asks what else can be removed. Instead of expanding priorities, he compresses them. Instead of multiplying objectives, he sharpens them. And through this process, something unusual begins happening. Energy stops leaking. Momentum stops fragmenting. Attention stops scattering. Force begins accumulating. Year after year, decision after decision, until a threshold is reached. A threshold most competitors never see coming, because concentrated force creates asymmetrical outcomes. Small advantages become large advantages. Large advantages become structural advantages. Structural advantages become monopolistic advantages. And this brings us to the final revelation hidden beneath the entire architecture of concentration. The greatest fortunes in history were not created merely by possessing more resources than everyone else. They were created by concentrating resources more intensely than everyone else. The ultimate competitive monopoly is not built through endless expansion. It is built through relentless